Did the mayo come?
Of course it did.
Okay. Great. Did you put the salt in the thing outside?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Things get done.
Things are getting done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me and our system don't have to worry.
Welcome back to The Most Important Thing. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Greg. And together we're exploring family culture and leadership at home.
So we're calling today's episode How We Divide, Conquer, and Connect, the shared operating system behind our marriage. And while we've been together for a decade and started some of these things, right, in fits and starts, today we're going to share our framework for how we talk about the things that need to get done, but we don't necessarily want to talk about them in the middle of the kitchen or right before bed or me screaming, Greg, while I'm in the shower, right? Which is legitimately what used to end up happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
totally.
still does happen a little bit sometimes.
I love this topic because I just think that it's so great to be able to look back and say, we've got these foundations, we've got these systems to a point where we can now share them and other people can copy ours. Cause like I copied so many people on the way here.
So true. Or at least take ours as like a bad first draft, right?
Totally.
Because I think that most of our listeners have certainly their own system.
Sure.
Right. And we're all competent in our own worlds. I can like speak for myself and say that I have my own system that starts at 5 a.m. and ends at 8 p.m., whereas your schedule is on the later side of that. And so this is really about where our two systems overlap and how to create a shared system that assumes that we talk about really shared leadership, right? That assumes that we talk about the things that we need to talk about and where we need support. And then we trust each other that those things will get done in our own way.
Correct.
Right?
1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah. And so like you said, today's framework is our framework, subject to further change and development.
Yeah.
But it's one that we're sharing not because it's a magic pill, but because we think that it's worthwhile to give you something to hold on to.
Totally. And in preparation for this episode, we did some digging into research, and there's a ton of science that backs what we're talking about today and how important all this is.
Yeah. So should we get into that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I did a little bit of research around kind of the business and psychological takeaways, right? So from business, what we're talking about here today is shared leadership. And one of the key aspects of shared leadership is regular meetings on specific topics to build trust, alignment, and connection, right? And then kind of translating that at home, John Gottman in the Gottman Institute has done a lot of research about couples who establish rituals of connection, reporting higher relationship satisfaction. And so what does that mean? Rituals of connection doesn't just have to be, a date night or a long walk. It can also just be connecting on topics where if you show up and I show up prepared and present and ready to take something off one another's plate or catch a ball that's in the air, I can speak for myself and say that is actually the most connecting thing. The times where I have felt overwhelmed by something as little as who gets the meat out of the freezer before bed so that it's defrosted for the morning, and you being able to do that for me now. Every morning I get up and I look at the fridge and I'm like, oh, Greg prepared that for me. Greg thought about our system the night before, and now I'm ready. It's like a little assembly line, right? And so now I'm ready to take it the next step.
Yeah. I like the assembly line analogy because that's what a lot of the work around here is.
Yeah.
I do it, you do it, we do it. Like depends on so many different things with the kids versus things with the house versus, the car needs whatever it needs. Like all of these things just show up and we don't know when they're going to show up, but it's nice to have a system to organize them and put them in compartments so that like, if you're thinking about something and I don't have space for that. Like, we know when we're going to talk about it. It's not
Yes.
like, oh, Greg, I was just thinking about this thing that's going to derail your entire day.
Yeah, which is so important for us because we live together, we work together, and we work from home.
Yeah.
And we share 3 children together, right? So we have a lot of moving pieces that could easily, and I think this is what happened during COVID, where we had worked together for a while, but we hadn't worked together at home in the presence of our children until 2020, right? And so
Yeah.
as someone who loves structured communication, but then sometimes gets a little off with it because I have, especially when I'm caffeinated, have like random thoughts. Like this morning, I truly was about to ask you about corporate venture capital on the bike this morning at 8 a.m. when I was doing my warm up. And I'm like, wait, no, stop. We talked about that on Friday. And so a lot of this is kind of translating, because we had to, since we work together and live together, translating some of the core operating principles that we have in working together in the business world, in the venture capital world, to our home.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think we should maybe just give an overview of what we're talking about, and then we can get into some of the other reasons to do it and
Totally.
how we do it.
I agree. If I'm listening right now, I want to know, okay, guys, what's your plan? How does it look like? What I'm doing?
Buckle up. What are you in for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we thought it would make the most sense to talk highest level down to the minutia. So on a very high level, we tend to have 3 to 5 year vision conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have, and those are, I would call them more sporadic. Like, I don't know, how often would you say that we have those?
Well, I would say that we check in on those in a way. We're checking in on them annually to see how we're doing against those, but we're not really changing them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we might tweak a little bit or say, hey, let's focus a little bit more here because, we bought this house. So like, check, right? Let's focus a little bit more on socialization, like on entertaining or something like that.
Still to be done. Yes.
Still to be done.
Got it.
But those things don't really change. And that's 3 to 5 year vision. The reason that we call it vision is because like there's no like set goal right there. It's like, what do we want to look back and say that we're really proud of?
Yeah. And then on a quarterly basis, we each have our own personal goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then we share those with one another and really support each other in making them happen. I would say, rather than actually me doing something for you, it's about allocating space and time.
Yes.
And then the other thing we do on a quarterly basis is our quarterly investment meeting. So we review our budget and investments. And then on a weekly basis, we talk about logistics. So every Thursday morning, we have what we call our stand-up. And we talk about the things that need to happen over the next 7 to 10 days.
Yeah. That stand-up is like, it's very logistics focused. But the first thing that we always check in on is one another.
Yeah. And then we have a daily tasks system that we share as well. So that's an outline of our framework. And I think let's get into it. 3 to 5 year vision.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you take this one because it's really your baby.
Yeah. 3 to 5 year vision it's my baby to document, but I'm really just listening. I'm listening to myself, and I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to our kids about what it is that we actually care about and what we want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And taking inventory of what we have good leads us to where we want to spend more time. And so like taking more risks was actually the big thing that came out of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most important thing is a risk that we are taking.
Sure.
And is a big risk, right? But some of the other things that came out of that were serving community.
Yes.
Right? And spending more time with family. It wasn't just about building family culture, it was about spending more time with family that we have. So I think that there's a lot of good that comes out of these conversations. And then once we have that as our North Star, it's pretty easy to calibrate what we need to be doing on a quarterly basis to get towards those goals.
Mm-hmm. When was the last one before that you have written down?
The last one would have been February 15th, 2020.
Oh, wow. So these really are 5 year vision setting exercises. Yeah. And did we do that at the Mexican restaurant with Jade and the bassinet?
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly when that happens.
Okay.
And we crushed those things. I mean, we did not know how we were going to get to those things. But what we had said then is we want a home where we can entertain, family rituals and rituals for the two of us, the pursuit of self-directed learning and engagement in that community, and to find a cause we care deeply about to teach our children about giving back and unifying us on principles. That's what we came up with in February 2020.
Cool.
Pretty cool.
Quite a circuitous path.
I know.
I always
know.
say, like, if you had told me on February 15th, 2020, that I was going to have a third child in less than 2 years, born at Boca Regional Hospital in Boca Raton, Florida, I would have thought you were nuts. Like, there was no way that any of those things were happening.
No.
And here we are.
I know. And here we are.
And here we are.
It's really cool because I feel like you are better at setting the vision, just like pulling it out. Like you kind of have the North Star in your pocket at all times. And what I'm trying to do is calibrate what we need to do to get to those things, but also to make sure that I'm on board and aligned and understand your position if you're ahead of me, which sometimes you are.
I know.
I feel like the times when I'm catching up is through my 12-week plan review and through my quarterly review to get us to the next step in those check-ins, right? And then like you're always kind of calibrating us towards like the next milestone in the vision setting, which is pretty cool. It feels good.
Does it? I just want to check in and make sure it does feel good.
I mean, look, I've got a lot of responsibility and leadership in my business. And with this family, like I have lots of opinions, but I hold on to those opinions pretty weakly because I'm not in I don't spend the hour and a half with our kids in the morning during their learning time to see where they are, to see if they need more attention in certain things. You know, I'm not the one that the kids want to have pillow talk with at night to girl talk, to calibrate their innermost feelings and desires. And so I'm kind of trusting you to take the reins on those sorts of things, to really see our kids and to communicate, Greg, like this is where you can help. This is where I'm spending time. This is how I'm thinking about it. But like, I think that because we have shared goals and the shared vision, and that vision is calibrated, like I hope that there's no resentment that you are taking the lead on those things, you know, because I feel very supported by your leadership, but I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that I'm supporting you so that you don't ever feel like you have too much on your plate, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate that very much so. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that in our research people talk about a lot is women bearing an outsized portion of the mental load when it comes to the home and the family and the children. And I think that I am happy to bear that leadership load, knowing that the conversations, the ones that we'll talk about today, really help me kind of workshop things with you, and together we can divide and conquer on those things to do. So even if I'm the one that's noticing and observing and kind of acting as the scientist around what everybody seems to need, that we can then have these conversations, particularly around our quarterly plans and in our weekly conversations, to support me in those efforts.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we were talking about quarterly.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to talk about your 12-week plan.
Sure.
How you discovered it, how long you've been using it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The 12-week plan I really love. I would say it's a like stripped down version of business OKRs, but it works for just about everything. And the reason that it's called a 12-week plan, it's based on a book called The 12-Week Year, which the premise is you can do way more in a year than you realize. Don't set annual goals, set 12-week goals and then crush them and then move on to the next 12 weeks. So that's what I've been doing for almost 10 years now. And I'd use this mostly as a function of work, but what I can throw in there are things that are related to our home life as well, especially if I want to work on those particular things. So the way that it's set up, and I can link to the book, link to the template, and hat tip to Scott Britton for introducing this to me 10 years ago, a good friend and fellow lifelong learner, if you will. So the way that it's set up is your 3-month goal, your 12-week goal is the thing that you're calibrating, that I'm calibrating towards. But I'm focused on monthly and weekly. So the monthly thing that I need to focus on is going to roll up to that 12-week goal. And then my weekly tasks all need to roll up to that monthly thing. And these are very specific things with metrics, not like, write the business plan. It's like, okay, set time with Danielle to focus on X. And I spell this out for the 3 to 4 areas of my life that are, or my business that are most pressing, and I score them. And every Saturday or Sunday, I set up a new one. And when I'm reviewing the previous week, the scores, if I'm scoring in the upper 90s, that means that I haven't gone hard enough. And if I'm in the 60s, then I probably put too much on my plate. But the sweet spot is like high 70s, low 80s, like kind of where I used to score in middle school. And so I find that gives me the intentionality to understand why I'm doing things, not just put things on my plate, because that monthly goal is really what I'm calibrating towards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I love how disciplined you are about that.
I was telling you earlier, just point me to somebody who's done something well and I will copy it and execute.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather take something that is good enough and just make it work for me. And I've shown this to, dozens of people over the last 10 years, and people have picked it up, and, many have started and stopped. Like, I just find that it's as good as anything. And I love it. So I'm going to keep using it.
So that's your share. That is your individual system. I don't have a system for 12-week plan. It's interesting. We were talking earlier today about how if we had met 5 years prior than what we did, so say 15 years ago, I think I would be the one with the very intense 12-week plan with OKRs and KPIs, and would be trying to control my own destiny. And you might be the one that's more resistant to that type of plan, right?
That's right.
And so for me, while I see so much growth in you in staying disciplined and focused in that manner, and I see how much relief it gives you. Is relief the right word? Do you know what I'm saying? So how much it's comfort, how much safety?
Yeah, safety.
How much safety is found in that system? For me, my growth is actually not having a spreadsheet that dictates my goals, because I can usually tell you off the top of my head the things that I'm working on currently, but it's more of a vibe and less of a metric-based system. And so that is what we talk about. So we have 2 very different systems when it comes to quarterly goals. But quarterly, typically when we talk about your 12-week plan, we talk about what are my goals as well, and how are we going to make space for one another to support those efforts.
Yep.
So this most recently, I know that we're coming into, like the last time we talked about it, school was about to start. And some of my volunteering efforts were about to start at school and outside of school, right? And so the conversation that we had that was so helpful to me is like, Greg, I'm co-chairing a focus area for Impact 100 this year. I'm signed up to do math games at Coco Plum, which I love. And by the way, the local hospital just started a sweet treat cart where I could push around a cart full of yummy goodies for moms that have just given birth. And I want to do all of these things. Oh, and by the way, I want to foster puppies too. Again, so that was a great conversation where you really supported me in, okay, so can you do math once a month or twice a month instead of every week like last year? And yes, the hospital says you have to come weekly, but guess what, Danielle? You're a volunteer. And so if you tell them that you want to come twice a month, like that's okay. And so now for these next few months, I have the service piece of my pie, which is such an important piece to me, really full, thanks to our conversation, because I was, racking in my brain at 3 a.m. constantly, like, how am I going to get all these things done in addition to my job and all the other things that I have to do? And so that's, I think, a great example of where our quarterly goal setting systems are so different, but that time that we come together is so important because we are able to support one another in creating space and sometimes really doing.
Yeah.
This quarter, you're going to be traveling more because it's something that we decided that we together talked about and decided that you is important for value stream. So how is our family going to shift with you being out of the house more and on business trips? Yeah. So that is another thing that we talked about during our quarterly goal setting time.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm supportive of all the service that you're doing. And I also know how important it is to the kids that you are there doing math with them.
Yes.
And I know how important it is to the school. And I know how important the school is to this family. And so that you get to check up on it every 2 weeks is also very helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So
but it's just trying to figure out all the pieces of the pie. Like I tend, especially when it comes to being of service, I tend to be a bit overly aspirational.
Yeah, well, I think that you are overly aspirational at times, but other times you sign up because you don't think anyone else is going to pull their weight. And so I think that you need a little bit of like space to say, it's okay if I only give what I can give to. Yes. I don't need to give 100% to every bucket here because I will have 0% left for me.
And I'm so grateful to you, truly, for helping me recognize that, especially in places where I am of service, like this is not a job. I can decide what works for me.
Yes.
Not some program head on high telling me how frequently I will be participating.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're still the customer.
Yes, exactly. So that's our quarterly process around personal goals.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes we'll have a shared family goal that you'll put on your 12-week plan and then hold me accountable to it as well. But then the other quarterly system that we've recently, over the past couple of years, instituted, really since we got this house. So, gosh, I guess it's been 5 years. Has been the financial review.
Yeah, the financial review.
We could probably have a whole separate episode on that, but suffice it to say, we do budget, actual versus what we forecasted, and then like the go forward budget forecast, but also including what I call capital expenditures. So like one-time large items like turfing our front yard or getting our pool relined. It usually has to do with house stuff, right?
Yeah.
But school tuition for Maverick, right? Last year, it was like his first full year of preschool, which was much more expensive than his 1 day a week program. Things like that. Talking about how we are going to save for or budget for that.
Yeah. So the financial review is one of my favorites in a weird way because it's such a airtight container. And if we follow the thread, which I have created an email thread that gives the updates every quarter and what we resolve to do for the following quarter, it's just like so clean. It's like we resolved to do this, we did this. We resolved to do this, we did this. And between a simple budgeting app, which I don't use for budgeting, I just use for counting. It's just know where the money went and then calibrate for the next quarter. So if I know where the money went, we can track our investments in a spreadsheet. We can put all that into GPT and create a nice little email, have a quick 5-minute meeting about what's been going on, any resolutions, anything that we want to focus on, anything that we want to save towards, put that in our thread. And then when it comes 3 months from now, like, in next month when we do it again, I just look back at the thread and I know what we've been focused on. It's like, honestly, it takes the financial, what I think of as like the financial load, the mental load of managing finances, which seems to be so huge and daunting with all of the extra curriculars, all of the extra schooling, all the the stuff for the kids, like, and it just makes it so streamlined. And I love that.
But I think the real innovation is that we're relying on facts, not emotions.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the whole picture. We're not looking at one-off, oh my gosh, we're now paying $800 a month for jujitsu lessons. How does that work? Right?
Yep, totally.
And there are some things that come up that we have to talk about, whether it's financial or otherwise. And this is where the weekly stand-up, I think, acts as a wonderful container, because I don't necessarily want to be bothering you when the girl's orthodontist calls one of us in the middle of the workday about when we're going to schedule our next appointment. But I know that on Thursday mornings at our weekly stand-up, that is where we can have conversations like that. So it just goes in my little Todoist system to Thursday morning. And so I'm going to put our weekly stand-up agenda in the show notes, and we'll do a post about that as well, because that is an agenda that I think that is such an important meeting, because it kind of bridges the gap between these quarterly high-level conversations that we're having and the daily tasks and minutia that we have to kind of divide and conquer on.
Completely. Yeah. No, the weekly stand-up is key. It's what are we eating? What are we doing this weekend? What do we have next week? When are we seeing each other? When are we not? How do we schedule our extracurriculars, like, our exercise or our walks with a friend or whatever.
Physical therapy.
Like anything like that. And, it's just kind of like a place to bring up some things that we might have noticed over the week, or bring up some questions that we have for one another that weren't really, fitting into like the day-to-day conversation.
Yeah. And I think this is where the sharing of house chores is like really important. So, the water filtration company needs to come out this week. When are we scheduling that appointment? Hunter needs to go to the orthodontist. And like, should we do speech therapy for Maverick? All the things kind of in the same way that our family meeting that we have with the kids, if there's a problem that comes up during the week, we write it on the board in the kitchen, and then we can decide which one to take care of. I know that if there are things that come up during the week that are more than just a 1-minute conversation and passing while we're brushing our teeth kind of thing, that we can use Thursday morning as a way to have, not an hour-long conversation, but 5 to 10 minutes to really get aligned on what makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. And that's when we break down tasks and assign those tasks.
Yeah, that's where the real sharing of house chores is, I believe. Yeah. And then also, of course, food shopping and meal planning. So we like to plan for the week we like to plan for the next week usually. So we do it on Thursday mornings, and then we'll plan what's going on that weekend and then the following week. So it's meal planning, who needs the car when, because we share a car, and who has like early mornings or late nights. If I have like a volunteering opportunity, or Greg has a drinks event in Miami, thinking about, who's going to handle bedtime or mornings during those times. Mm-hmm. So it's a really nice container to take a look at the week ahead and just make sure that we're on the same page without necessarily involving the kids. Our children are 7, 5, and 3. They don't really need to spend time with us on the weekends talking about the week ahead. I don't even like to talk about it on the weekend. On the weekend, honestly.
No, agreed.
We do it intentionally. We take half an hour during the week intentionally, because it feels more kind of like that's the time. Like we're not taking away from our relaxation on the weekend to do that.
Yep, exactly. And then the tasks. So tasks are flying left and right. They are in our shared Todoist system, which is a system that we built kind of together based on David Allen's Getting Things Done. But honestly,
I don't know if we built it together, Greg. When we had our first date, you were like, "You need to read this book, Getting Things Done." And I think you even like downloaded Todoist onto my phone.
I did.
It's a wonderful system. I think that you've really gotten me focused on keeping things out of my head, and I would love to kind of get into the psychology behind that, please, a little bit. So there's 2 different effects at play here. I mean, I'm sure there are tons, but 2 that I would like to highlight from using a to-do list system.
Yep.
And that's 1, cognitive load theory, which is that humans have limited working memory. So when we externalize tasks into systems, it reduces our cognitive load, which frees us up to be so much more creative and peaceful. And I have certainly seen that in my life. I try to keep nothing in my brain.
And the cognitive load is going to be there if we create tasks that are not tasks. And so I like to talk about that a lot, which is like, it's not get Maverick a new bike. That is not a task. You cannot put that into Todoist. That is not a thing. What is the next step? And the next step needs to go in, and then you can write out the steps after that if you want to or not, but only write down the next step that you have to do for anything. Otherwise, like, cognitive load is right back on you. It's just now showing up in your to-do list.
Yeah, that's such a great point. So what would the first step be? Like research a bike for Maverick or something?
Well, so what size does he currently have? You know, it's the first step. The first, like,
look up what size Maverick's bike currently is.
Look at his current size bike, right? Like when and then go from there. But like that's the kind of stuff that I see in lots of people's systems, and I see all these systems for couples around finances and around tasks and around this and that. And I'm like, the principles are not taught in these systems that they're putting out there. They're just creating what you and I have created and are charging a premium, but aren't giving people the tools to actually make them work for them. So I think that, you know, the cognitive load theory is exactly what we're talking about. It's not just the cognitive load on writing something down, which is great. You've written something down, but it's actually, did you write down what you need to do next? Did you actually think through? And if you haven't thought it through, do what we do. Ring the AI bell. Ask GPT, ask Grok. Hey, I need to get my kid a new bike. What are the next steps?
Yeah. Or put it in your inbox, right? I think that's one of the key innovations of David Allen's system, which is if you do not have time to think about what's the tiniest next step or what is the right, it's just throwing it in the top.
Throw it in the top and then process it later.
And then process it later.
Agreed. But what I've learned in being around friends and relatives that are on their phone for like 5 to 10 minutes at a time when they think of something is that no task is 1 minute or less, almost no task.
And so I think that's something that is something that I've really seen you change, where it used to be, Greg, we need mayo. And you would go to Walmart and order mayo. And you'd think it would take you a minute, but it would actually take 5, especially because then you maybe forgot the fact that we need distilled water.
Or maybe I'm like, oh, is it cheaper on Amazon?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So just write it down. And that, like, I don't even like that rule of if it's less than a minute, like, do it now.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. The do, delegate, defer thing is really delegate, defer, and schedule. Those are the 3 things that I do. I don't, basically, if I get a text from somebody being like, hey, I need a K1, like, I write it down. I don't run to my computer and download the K1 and send it to them.
It's more containers.
And then
the inbox is a
10
container.
minutes in. Exactly. The inbox is a container. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one is the Zeigarnik effect, which I love because I didn't know this was a thing, but it's so a thing, which is that unfinished or unassigned tasks linger in the mind, increasing stress and intrusive thoughts. I know this so much to be true, which is why being able to put something in Todoist really does relieve that mental load. Yeah. Unfortunately, for like personal relationships and things like that, I find that the Zeigarnik effect, like I find it so difficult. This is a tangent, but like so difficult to not think about a problem I'm having with a friend or a family member if I cannot solve said problem. Like, it just stays on loop in my brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The anticipatory stress research that Sweeney and Kavanaugh did in 2012 says that worry spikes when uncertainty is high. And so that's part of it, is because of that high uncertainty. And when you don't have anything that's predictable, like, you know, hey, I know how this is going to get resolved. It's going to keep going. But this is also why our weekly stand-ups and quarterly planning work, is because if you have a thought on the bike about, you know, jiu-jitsu classes and budgeting for those, like, you know where that container lives and when it's going to be talked about. And you can even name it out loud. You'd be like, hey, I just had this worry show up about jiu-jitsu. I'm excited to talk about it in our quarterly budget review.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. And then I think that relieves the stress on you. So it's not like Danielle's coming to you in the middle of our workout.
Because I just want to solve things for you. And so if you text me, you know, need mayo, you know, the versus put it in. So this is the other part of Todoist that we love, is we assign tasks to one another, and we assign it for the day that we think of it, so that the other person sees it. But we do not expect that to be done that day. That's just like a normal,
Right.
like when you have a chance type of thing, which is beautiful. So instead of waking up to 40 text messages from Danielle being like, we're out of this happened, this light bulb's out, whatever, like I'll just see it in my Todoist when I scan that, and then I can move that around as necessary.
Yeah. And that's a recent innovation that I'm still working on, which is the fact that I get up a couple hours before you and you go to bed a few hours after me. So often I will wake up to text messages from you about something that you're very excited about at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I will,
Yeah.
too often you will wake up to like logistics things from me, right?
Yeah. I started I even did this last night. I went to text you this article about Trump shutting down the Florida vaccine, religious exemption, whatever. And I went to text it to you and be like, Trump saved the day. But I didn't. I put it in my inbox so that when I saw it, I could have a conversation with you about
Yeah.
it. Because I was like, this is something that I don't want you to just like see. I want to talk about this.
Sure.
But it was a thing for me to talk to about you, because that's a place where we build connection. We're not just looking to, have these
Send
Todoists.
each other art. Or just like, don't you love the people that just like send you
an
articles
article?
with no commentary?
Oh my
Like,
God.
you just gave me homework. Like,
It's
I don't understand.
horrible.
So that's not helpful.
It happens oh my God. Don't get me started. This is a productivity house, if y'all can't tell already. We love this kind of stuff. We love being able to connect with one another and not having this noise. Like, what I'm trying to get better at is listening and not having my phone in front of me. I find that, writing things down instead of doing them on my phone is such a great way to be present for my loved ones. And I find that like my whole life just works better if I'm present for you, if I'm present for our kids. Like, that's really what this is about. That's why we're doing this. That's why we have these vision settings. That's why, like, the vision is that we get to spend more time together as a family. And so how do we do that? Like, we have to put these containers around all of the things that can jump into our lives so that we approach those with the care that is needed, but not before the time that they're needed to be addressed.
Yes. Well
So-
said. Absolutely. Well said. And I think that's really the point of this, is that this episode could be called Ways to Spend More Time Together.
Yeah. it
What
really
what is all the productivity for?
Right.
And what it's really for is so that we are not thinking about those things at the time that we are connecting.
Exactly.
Right. So that when we're working out, we're working out. When we're working, we're working. When we're sitting on the beach or relaxing in the ocean, we're
That's
really
what we're
there.
doing. The resentment thing is real too. And I'm so glad that we don't have that anymore. Like, I know in so many relationships, like even friendships, it's just so hard when you feel like you're pulling more of the weight than someone else is. Like, I'm just so glad that we don't have that. And I'm very, very grateful for that we're on the same page with having these systems and that we've designed them together.
It really has alleviated almost all, if not all, of the resentment.
Yeah.
So great. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And we hope that we've given you something to think about today. Like, I have no doubt that everyone listening has their own system that works well. It might look like your partner's, it might be completely different than your partner's, but I think the most important thing is really to develop a shared system to talk about the things that need to get talked about so that you can spend the rest of the time connecting in more fun ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like without headphones.
Yeah, we tried it today. Let's see how it works. Hope you can hear us.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Love you,
Thanks.
Goosey.
Love you, Goosey.
Hey guys, if you're still here, you're definitely our kind of person. Thanks for spending this time with us on the most important thing. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and share it with someone else building family culture on purpose.